All right, number 6 says, solve each equation. Remember to check for extraneous solutions. Any ideas how to start this? Okay, take away the square root. How do you take it away? Square it. Okay, because they're inverses. The squared will cancel out the square root, leaving 110 minus b on the outside. But since you squared this side, you must also square this side. Okay, now any ideas what we need to do? Oh, well, it's already a minus b. Okay, if we add b on this side, it'll cancel. And then we add it over here, but you can't actually combine it with the v squared because they're two different terms. You can put them on the same side, though. What else can we do? Subtract the 110 because they're all three different. One's a constant, one's squared, and one is to the first. If we subtract the 110 and then subtract it over here, now don't we basically have everything canceled out on the left? So the left equals 0. Everything canceled out. Yeah, we moved everything to one side. Anytime you're dealing with a problem and every single term is different and you can't combine any, move them all to the same side. Because now when you look at it, what are your options? How about either quadratic formula, factor, graph? So which way do y'all want to go? Graph. Okay, let's graph it. Y equals v squared plus v minus 110. Okay, now, on y'all's graphs, everybody hit zoom 6. If you're just working with the standard graph, you probably saw that it went off the screen. What can I do if I want to see farther over this way? You can, but there's an easier way. Okay, look, what you're looking at is the window. Okay, right now my window goes to 10 on both sides of the x and 10 on both sides of the y. If I change my window and I want to see more to the right side of the x-axis, which one do you think that is? X max, okay? Obviously x is x-axis. Min is on the left side, max is on the right. Y is the y-axis. Min is down, max is up. So since we can see that we want to see more of the x-axis, maybe let's make this a 20. Now graph it. Okay, so where is that one crossing the x-axis? Is it 11 or 10? Somebody confirm it. I've heard two different answers. 10? Okay, so it crosses one time at 10. But remember, we're dealing with a degree 2 trinomial, so we should have two answers, not just one. So where do you think the other x-intercept is? Right, somewhere over here. Because can't you see by how it's going down that it's going to continue to go down before coming back up over here? So what do I need to do to see over here? Window. What do I need to change? Well, remember, I'm just trying to see farther left. The x min needs to go farther than negative 10. Maybe let's go negative 20 notches. And now I can see where it crosses over there. At what? Negative 11. So those are your two answers. Now, had you tried to factor it, okay, had you tried to factor it, you would have been looking for two numbers. Those two numbers would have had to have added to 1, multiplied to negative 110. If you're multiplying to get a negative number, don't you have to have opposite signs? And then numbers that multiply to get 110 that are 1 unit apart are 10 and 11. But it would have had to have been a negative 10 and a positive 11 to make a 1. But remember, it's always the opposite. Like b minus 10 would actually be 10 has a 0. And b plus 11 would actually be negative 11, right? Or, once you got to this step, you could have done quadratic formula. What's the a, b, and c? What's a? What's b? What's c? You would have done negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all, oops, let me do that, all over 2 times a, which is 1, so it would just be 2. You would have then typed this in, but what do you, go ahead and just type in 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 110. Don't type the square root, just type in what's under it. $441? Okay. Now type in the square root of 441. It's a perfect square, comes out a whole number. Now look, what's negative 1 plus 21? Guys, what's 20? What's 20 over 2? 10. Isn't that what we got when we looked at it on the graph? What's negative 1 minus 21? What's negative 22 over 2? Isn't that what we got when we looked at it on the graph? So there's 3 methods. You can bubble method once you get to here, but just remember the actual solutions are the opposite of what's in the bubbles. You can quadratic formula, or you can just graph it and look at where it crosses the x-axis. But when you graph it, you have to be familiar with how to change the window in case it's off of the current window. Okay, number 7. How many roots do the following equations have? Okay, roots is another word for zeros, x-intercepts. Okay, so you could graph it and see how many times it hits the x-axis, but really what would be easier is just add up the exponents. This x in front is raised to the what power? The first power. This x minus 2 is raised to the first power. This x minus 5 is raised to the second, and so is this one. So you add them up. 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1. So there are 6 roots. Well, yeah, like right here and right here on the graph, those would bounce because they have a multiplicity of 2. Like, let me show you on the graph what it would look like. Y equals x, parenthesis, x minus 2, parenthesis, x minus 5 squared, parenthesis, 3x minus 8 squared. Okay, it's too zoomed out. I'm going to zoom back to the north. Look, if I hit zoom 6, which is standard, it goes back to the standard 10 by 10 by 10 by 10 window. Okay, look, didn't it cross right through a 0? That's representative of this just regular x. Right here, didn't it cut through the x-axis at positive 2? That's representative of that x minus 2. Didn't it bounce right here? That's representative of this one, 3x minus 8. And then over here at 5, didn't it bounce again? That's the x minus 5 squared. Okay? But you don't have to graph it to know that there's 6 roots. You just add up the exponents. So go ahead and look at number 8 and tell me what it should be. Yes, 8. Because this one, it would go through the x-axis at 1. It would also go through the x-axis at negative 1. It would bounce at negative 1. It would bounce here, and it would bounce here. Bounces count twice. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6, and then 7, 8. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay, number 9. B cubed minus 7b squared minus 12b plus 37 divided by b minus 8. Divide using synthetic division. So how do I start this process? Okay, and 8 goes in it. You always do the opposite. Since it's b minus 8, you put a positive 8. Then what do I do? Okay, the first number, no matter what it is, always drops down. What do you do with that number? Okay, and that becomes, then those combine to make a positive 1. And then it multiplies by 8 to make a 8. Negative 12 and a positive 8 is, it multiplies by 8 to make negative 32. And that's a remainder of 5. Now remember, if you even get this much, I'm pretty sure with multiple choices, you'll know which one's right. But the correct answer is b squared plus 1b minus 4, remainder of 5. You always start your answer a degree lower. Since the question started out as b cubed, you start your answer as b squared. Okay, go ahead and take a second and try number 10 by yourself.
You said drop a
Drop the first one.
Oh, I thought you said drop the
Okay,
one no
look.
matter what.
9 goes in the box.
Oh,
Then you bring down the numbers. 10, negative 80, negative 83, negative 62. The first number, no matter what it is, comes down. Okay, now normally it is a 1. But every so often, we deal with one that doesn't have a 1 at the beginning. But no matter what it is, you drop it. Okay? Whatever drops below the line then multiplies by the box number, so that makes a 90. Now, to clear up what y'all were asking about, see how this is a negative 80 and that's a positive 90? So basically you add the 90 to it. Negative 80 plus 90 is 10. Then you multiply it by 9 and get a 90. Well, that's a positive 90. Negative 83 plus 90 is 7. 7 times 9 is 63. So you're basically doing negative 62 plus 63, which is a remainder of 1. Like if you had say the box number was a negative and one of these became a negative, you would do negative whatever minus whatever. But since they all turned out positive, you add them all. Does that make sense? Now, this started out p cubed, so you start your answer p squared plus 10p plus 7, remainder of 1. Now, let me show you why you get that. Okay, look up at the board a second. If you take the p minus 9 and multiply it by my answer of 10p squared plus 10p plus 7, let's see what you get. Okay, so I'm going to distribute p minus 9 by what we just got. P times 10p squared is 10p cubed. P times 10p is 10p squared. P times 7 is 7p. Now I have to distribute the negative 9. Negative 9 times 10p is negative 90p squared. Negative 9 times 10p is negative 90p. And negative 9 times 7 is negative 63. Now I combine like terms. This is the only cube term, so it just comes down. 10p squared minus 90p squared is negative 80p squared. 7p minus 90p is negative 83p. Okay, so I brought down that, I combined that with this one, I combined it with this one, and then I'm left with a minus 63. Well look, 10p cubed, negative 80p squared, negative 80p squared, negative 83p, negative 83p. This one and this one are 1 off. That's why there's a remainder of 1. Okay? All right, number 11. Thank you. Solve each equation by completing the square. Okay, before I start this process, I'm going to go ahead and let you know how it's going to work in here on the test day. We decided yesterday that we're not going to give you a formula sheet. However,
Disrespectful.
you are...
Deposit?
Yeah. I just wanted to get your reaction. calculator. Number 1, you need to move the constant to the other side. Okay, what I mean by that is, see how you have a negative 53 and a negative 5? They can be combined. You need to add this 53 to the other side with the negative 5. So then it'll become x squared minus 18x equals what? 48. No, I mean, you could write this on your card. No. I'll have to look, but I don't think so. Okay, number 2. Add blanks on both sides.
Oh, I remember this.
Okay, so like you'd have x squared minus 18x plus blank equals 48 plus blank. Step 3 is fill in the blanks. And the formula for that is to take the b value, divide it by 2, and square it. So in that scenario, what is the b value? The negative 18. So if you divide it by 2, you get a negative 9, and if you square that, you get a 81, and you add that number on both sides. Step 4 is you're going to factor on the left side and combine on the right. Okay, so like on the right side, when I say combine, just add those together. What's 48 plus 81? 48 plus 81? 129. Okay, on the left side, you factor. What two numbers multiply to 81 and add to negative 18? Right, x minus 9, x minus 9. Now, since there's 2 of them and they're the exact same, step 5 is write as binomial squared. The number with the x. Okay, so write as a binomial squared. So you'll write the x minus 9 once and you'll square it. Step 6, solve for x. Okay, so if I'm trying to get the x by itself, what's the very first thing I need to do? Get rid of the squared, right? Well, first I got to get rid of the squared by square rooting it, and that leaves x minus 9 by itself. But since I square rooted this side, I have to square root this side. What is the square root of 129? Okay, now would you do to continue solving for x? Add 9. So x equals 20.36. Okay, but that's only one answer. How many answers should we get? 2, because this is a degree 2 polynomial. So step 7 is, don't forget the plus or minus. Now let's talk about where I mean to put it. Okay, type in your calculator exactly what I write down. 11.36 times 11.36. Type it down just like I wrote it. 11.36 times 11.36. 129 is what you got? Okay, now type in negative 11.36 times negative 11.36. Did you type it in exactly how I wrote it? It's also positive 129 because a negative times a negative is a positive. So see how you get 129 no matter if you get 11.36 squared or negative 11.36 squared. So when you square root this, you have to put plus or minus on that 11.36 because either would come back to a 129 when you squared it. So now we already did 11.36 plus 9. Now what do we need to do? Negative 11.36 plus 9, which is negative 2.36. Okay, now, the reason I went through that process of completing the square is because there's a few questions, like number 15, where you're going to have to know how to complete the square. However, on a question like this, if I were working it, I wouldn't have chose completing the square as my method. This is what I would have done. Can I erase? Okay, but the only reason I went through this is because in a few minutes you are going to need to know how to do this. I would have made this side equal 0. So I would have added 5, added 5. That would have given me x squared minus 18x. That would become a minus 48 equals 0. I would have identified my a as 1, my b is negative 18, my c is negative 48, and what would I have done? Quadratic formula. Negative b would have been a negative 18, so a positive 18. Plus or minus the square root of negative 18 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Then I will do this, typed it in twice. Okay, watch when I type it in. Second, quit to get out of the thing. I'm setting up a fraction, so alpha y equals n over d. Okay, a positive 18 plus, I can't do these at the same time, so the first time I'll do plus the square root of negative 18 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 48 all over 2. And look at my answer. Isn't that one of the answers we got a while ago when we did the completing the square, 2.36? Okay, now I have to do it a second time though with the minus. So I'm going to go up to it and copy it and paste it instead of retyping it all. And what am I going to do? Right, I'm just going to go over here and change that to a minus this time. Okay, isn't that the other answer we got? Negative 2.36. Okay, but an even easier method for just checking, because you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time, you wouldn't want to complete the square and quadratic formula for the same problem. That would take a long time. Once you get it set equal to 0, like this, graph it. X squared minus 18x minus 48, graph. Okay, I can see it cross once right there, and that a teeny past negative 2, and then we just get negative 2.36. And with multiple choice, don't you think you could just look at that and then look at the choices and start narrowing it down? Well, by the slant, I can see that it's going to come down and come up over here. So how can I see over here? Window, what needs to be changed? Let's change it to, okay, we'll start with 20. Okay, I can barely see it, so maybe let's go to 25. Window, X max, oops, too far. 25. Now I can see it. If I count it out, isn't that a teeny bit past 20? And didn't we get 20.36 as one of our answers with both of the methods we used? So really, graphing. You could graph that right away and with multiple choices be able to identify the right answer. The thing you have to be good at is changing your window. If you don't know how to change the window, you're going to have a hard time finding it, okay? All right, number 12. Use the information provided to write the standard form equation of each circle. Well, you need to know the equation of a circle. It's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals equals the radius squared. So the information they gave us was the center of this circle and its radius. How can I use that information to make my equation? Okay, what gets plugged in where? What is the negative 12 and the 15? Right, that's my h and my k. So it'll become x, well, it's a minus a negative 12, so plus 12. Does that make sense? Because since the minus was already there, if you plug in a negative 12 right there beside it, a negative 12 is a plus 12. Plus y minus 15 squared equals 1 squared is still 1. So there's the equation of that circle. So you try number 13 by yourself. Okay, you should have ended up with x plus 2 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals what? 16. Okay, number 14. State the center and radius of the given circle. Well, remember, we're familiar with a circle looking like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change it from this form to this form. This is where we have to know how to complete the square. So what do I need to do first? Right, this belongs on the other side. Okay, then after that, you're going to need to group your variables. The x's belong together, so I'm going to put them together. And the y's belong together. Now, we're going to start completing the square. So I'm going to add a blank to the x trinomial, and I'm going to add a blank over here to the y's. But since I added 2 blanks on this side, I'll do the same on this side. How do I fill in those blanks? Well, we can't factor it yet because we don't have our c. You do b divided by 2, which would be squared. Okay, and since you're adding 144 over here, you do it over here as well. Okay, what would this c value become? 9, because negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9, and you also add it over here. Then remember, you're supposed to factor on the left, combine on the right. Well, what does the right become? What is negative 128 plus 144 plus 9? Just type it in quickly. 25. Now, over here, we have 2 different trinomials to factor. We got to factor the x trinomial, and we got to factor the y trinomial. What numbers add up to 24 and multiply to 144? 12 and 12. Well, instead of writing it twice, can't we write it once and square it? Okay, what numbers add up to negative 6 and multiply to 9? So, y minus 3, y minus 3. But instead of writing it twice, write it once and square it. Now, don't we have this? Don't we have the equation of the circle in this form? And they want us to identify the center and the radius. So, what is the center? Not negative 12, positive 3. Okay, because remember, the minus in the formula always changes its sign. The radius is 5. Because if it ended up at 25, when it was squared, then it was a 5 before. Yes? 24 divided by 2 is 12. 12 squared is 144. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. You do b over 2 squared to fill in the blanks. Okay, let's look at number 15. Are y'all finished copying, or are you still copying? Okay, number 15. Use the information provided to write the vertex form of each parabola. The equation of a parabola is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. The h and the k are the vertex of the parabola. So we need to figure out where the vertex is. So what you're going to do is you're going to find just a random graph on your test, or either I might even provide you with some scratch paper that's blank on one side and graph on the other, so you can graph some stuff. Okay, so you're just going to find a graph. You're going to plot your focus at 9, 3. So right 9, up 3. Okay, there's my focus. They told me my directrix is y equals 1. If I want to draw a line that cuts across the y-axis at 1, isn't it a horizontal line? So if that's my directrix and this is my focus, where would the vertex of the parabola be located? Right in the middle, which is located at 9, 2, right? And isn't that my h and my k? Well, I drew in y equals 1 because that's what they told me the directrix is, a line that crosses the y at 1. I drew in my focus at 9, 3. Well, we all know that with a parabola, the vertex of it is right in between those two things, so it would be at 9, 2. And is my parabola going to open up or down? Up. Your parabola always opens up toward the focus, away from the directrix. So that's going to make the a value positive. Okay, so now I know my h is 9, so it'll be x minus 9 squared. I know my k was a 2. I don't know exactly what my a value is yet, but I know it's positive because the parabola opened up. Had the parabola had to open down, the a value would be negative. And just knowing that much will get you the right answer. If you can figure out the h and the k, which is the vertex, and you can figure out where whether the a is positive or negative, that will be enough. Okay? All right, we'll stop there. You can switch out.